There's something uniquely terrifying about being home alone. The silence, the shadows, the way every creak, every whisper of wind suddenly feels unnatural. But what if that uneasiness isn't just in your head? What if there's something or someone lurking just out of sight? These are not urban legends, not movie plots. These are real stories told by people who were alone and barely lived to tell the tale. Lock your doors, check your windows, and whatever you do, don't watch this alone. Story number 1, The Man in the Crawl Space. It started with small things: missing snacks, a half-drunk soda left on the counter, the faint sound of footsteps when no one else was home. Jake, a 17-year-old high school student from Oregon, chalked it up to forgetfulness. Maybe he left the fridge open, or maybe the house was just settling. But after a few weeks, the uneasiness turned into outright fear. One night, Jake stayed up late playing video games. His parents were out of town, and the house was quiet, too quiet. Around 2:30 a.m., he paused his game and went to the kitchen. That's when he noticed it. The attic hatch in the hallway ceiling was slightly open. He knew he hadn't opened it. His parents never used the attic. And yet, there it was, cracked open, swaying gently like it had just been used. Jake's heart pounded. He grabbed a broomstick and poked at the hatch, pushing it fully closed. He locked his bedroom door that night. But sleep didn't come easy. The next day, he told a friend about it. They joked it off, calling it Jake's haunted house. But later that night, something happened that erased all humor. Jake was brushing his teeth when he noticed a faint sound coming from the hallway, almost like breathing. Slow, shallow, human. He froze. His eyes locked on the hallway mirror, and that's when he saw it. The attic hatch was open again. This time, Jake didn't wait. He called the police. Officers arrived within 15 minutes. They searched the attic. At first, nothing. Just insulation and old boxes. But then, they noticed the crawl space. A narrow gap behind the insulation panels. When they peeled it back, what they found was horrifying. A man, thin, pale, and covered in dust. He'd been living in the crawl space for weeks. There were food wrappers, a flashlight, a blanket, even a notebook filled with strange scribbles and sketches of the house and of Jake. The man had been sneaking down at night to eat, to watch, and, according to the officers, to get closer. They arrested him on the spot. Turns out he was a drifter with a criminal record, mostly burglary and trespassing. No one knew how he got in. But the scariest part, he'd carved Jake's name into the attic wall over a dozen times. Story number 2, Knocks That Shouldn't Be Heard. Emily was only 14 when it happened. It was a rainy Friday night in upstate New York, and her parents had gone out to a dinner party across town. They wouldn't be back until late. Emily didn't mind. She was used to being alone, curled up with her laptop, binge-watching horror movies. Ironically, that night's pick was a film about a haunted house, something about ghosts knocking on doors. Around 10:45 p.m., she paused the movie to go make popcorn. That's when she heard it. 3 slow, deliberate knocks, coming from her bedroom door. But she wasn't in her room. She was downstairs, and she was home alone. At first, she froze. Then, she tried to rationalize it. Maybe the TV was too loud and she misheard. She tiptoed upstairs, heart racing, holding a kitchen knife just in case. But when she opened the door to her bedroom, nothing, no one, just silence. She checked the closet, under the bed. The windows were all locked. No signs of anything out of place. Shaken but trying to move on, Emily went back downstairs. It happened again 20 minutes later, 3 knocks. But this time, they came from the bathroom door. And again, no one was there. But the pattern was starting to form. Every 20 to 30 minutes, like clockwork, she'd hear knocks from different doors around the house. Always 3 knocks. Always soft. Always deliberate. She called her parents. No answer. She texted her best friend. No response. Emily felt like she was going crazy. Finally, unable to take the stress, she called 911. The dispatcher stayed on the line while officers were sent to the house. Emily hid in the hallway with all the lights on, clutching her phone. The knocking stopped. When police arrived, they searched the entire home, top to bottom. Nothing. No signs of forced entry. No footprints. No one hiding. But when one of the officers walked into the guest room at the back of the house, he noticed something strange. Faint footprints. Wet. Leading from the closet to the door. Inside the closet, wedged between old suitcases and blankets, they found a tiny, broken piece of glass, possibly from a shattered window or a mirror. On it was a fingerprint, but it didn't match Emily or anyone in the house. It matched a man who had escaped from a psychiatric hospital 2 months earlier, just 12 miles away. He was never caught, and the final twist. Police believe he was trying to scare Emily. Slowly, subtly, but he likely fled when she called the cops, not expecting help to arrive so fast. To this day, Emily swears she heard breathing behind her bedroom door on the night of the first knock. Story number 3, the stranger at the window. Chris was 12 years old when he had the most terrifying experience of his life, one that would leave him traumatized for years to come. It was early winter in suburban Illinois. His parents had gone out for a date night, and Chris was left home alone for a few hours. It wasn't unusual. He had his snacks, cartoons, and the family's golden retriever, Max, to keep him company. But around 9:15 p.m., something felt off. Max suddenly stood up, ears perked, and began growling. Not barking, not running, just standing stiff, staring at the back window. Chris looked too. At first, he saw nothing, just darkness beyond the glass. But then, as his eyes adjusted, he saw it. A face, pale, unmoving, almost too still, staring through the window directly at him. Chris screamed and jumped back, knocking over the bowl of chips. But when he looked again, the face was gone. He ran upstairs, locked himself in his room, and called his mom. She didn't answer. He then called his dad, who picked up. Breathless, Chris told him everything. His dad tried to calm him down and said he'd be home in 20 minutes. Chris stayed upstairs, hiding in the closet, Max now whining outside the bedroom door. Everything was silent until he heard knocking. But it wasn't at the front door. It was at the second-story window. Chris's heart sank. That window led out to the roof over the porch, and it was 12 feet off the ground. Terrified, he didn't move. The knocking stopped. He heard footsteps on the roof, soft, deliberate, moving across the shingles. Then silence. 20 agonizing minutes passed before his parents came home. When they arrived, they found Chris sobbing in the closet, too scared to speak. The police were called, and a search was done around the house. In the snow beneath the back window, they found something that made everyone's blood run cold. Footprints. Bare feet. No shoes. No socks. Just a set of human footprints, leading from the woods behind the house to the window and then around the side. What was even worse, there were no prints leaving. The man had come out of the woods, but he never left any trace of where he went after that night. They never caught him. No further sightings. No suspects. Just a lasting fear that someone, or something, had come to see Chris that night and maybe hadn't left. Story number 4, the basement voice. Ava had always hated the basement. Even as a child, she avoided it. Something about the cold air, the creaky steps, and the flickering light made her stomach turn. Now 26, she had moved back into her childhood home to care for her father after he had a minor stroke. He mostly stayed upstairs, and the basement was rarely used. One quiet Saturday evening, she was alone in the house. Her dad had been taken to a physical therapy session by a neighbor, and she took the time to clean up and do laundry, something she'd been putting off. The laundry room, of course, was in the basement. She walked down, flipping on the ancient pull-string light. The air was stale, thick with dust. Ava put the clothes in the machine, pressed start, and turned to leave. That's when she heard it. Silence. Then, soft whisper. Ava. She froze. It wasn't loud, but it was unmistakable. Someone, or something, had whispered her name. She turned around. The basement was empty, just the hum of the washer and the buzz of the light. She told herself it was the machine making weird noises. Maybe she was tired. Maybe her mind was playing tricks. But as she climbed the stairs, she heard it again. Whisper again. Ava, come here. This time, it was clearer. Come here. It was coming from the far corner of the basement, the darkest part, behind the shelves of boxes. Her blood ran cold. She rushed up the stairs, slammed the basement door shut, and locked it. Her heart was pounding, hands shaking. But here's where it gets worse. She called her dad's neighbor to see if they were on the way back. The neighbor answered, but she was confused. She said her husband hadn't taken Ava's dad to therapy that day. He wasn't with them. He had never left the house. Panic hit her like a wave. She ran to her dad's room, but he wasn't there. The bed was untouched. The wheelchair was still in place. Ava was alone. Suddenly, she heard it again, but now it wasn't a whisper. It was a deep, guttural voice right behind the basement door. "Let me in. Ava." Asterisk. She called the police immediately. Officers arrived within 10 minutes and did a full sweep of the home. In the basement, they found something chilling. One of the old storage boxes had been pushed aside, revealing a small crawl space behind the foundation wall. Inside were a set of old clothes, empty food wrappers, and a small handheld recorder with her voice on it. Clips of her saying her name from old voicemails and videos. Someone had been recording her for months. To this day, they have no idea who the man was or how he got in. There were no signs of forced entry, no fingerprints, just that voice, that whisper. Story number 5, The Forgotten Room. When Olivia moved into her new apartment in Boston, it seemed like a dream come true. A top-floor studio in an old historic building, with brick walls, hardwood floors, and a gorgeous view of the skyline. It was old, yes, built in the 1920s, but beautifully renovated. A little creaky, a little drafty, but nothing unusual. Until she noticed something strange about the layout. On her third night there, while rearranging furniture, Olivia realized that something didn't add up. The space between her bedroom and bathroom should have been deeper than it looked. Almost like a missing closet or extra storage. She knocked on the wall. "Hello." She looked through the lease documents and blueprints. That's when she noticed it. A tiny label in faded ink. Maintenance access. Room 3C. There was no door marked 3C anywhere in her unit. But the more she searched, the more obsessed she became. Finally, behind a tall bookshelf, she found it. A small, square outline, a door frame, sealed shut with paint and drywall. It had been hidden for decades. Olivia couldn't explain why, but she felt compelled to open it. She borrowed a crowbar from maintenance, chipped away the drywall, peeled back layers of paint, and found a narrow wooden door with a rusted handle. No lock, just a handle. She turned it. The door groaned open to reveal a small, pitch-black room. No windows. Dust everywhere. It smelled of mold and old wood. But there was something else, something rotten. With her phone flashlight, she stepped inside. The room was maybe 8 feet by 6. Empty, except for a child's wooden chair facing the wall. On the wall in front of the chair were dozens, maybe hundreds, of tally marks scratched deep into the plaster. And beneath them, in childlike handwriting, "He watches from the wall." Olivia turned and ran out, slamming the door shut. She had it sealed the next day. But that wasn't the end of it. Over the next few nights, she started waking up at 3:33 a.m. on the dot. Every night. No alarm. No sound. Just awake. And each morning, when she passed by the area where the hidden door used to be, her dog would growl. Low. Uneasy. Then the scratching began. She'd hear it late at night. Behind the wall. Right where the door once was. Scratch. Pause. Scratch, scratch. She called building management. They opened up the wall again, but the room was empty. No chair, no marks, no writing. Just a single item in the middle of the floor, a child's drawing. Stick figures, a girl, a dog, and a tall black figure in the background with no face. 5 stories. 5 terrifying moments when being home alone turned into a nightmare no one could escape. Each one a reminder that sometimes the scariest things aren't monsters or ghosts, but the very real dangers lurking just beyond the walls of your own home. Through the window, a voice calling you from the basement, or a forgotten room holding secrets too dark to tell. These aren't just stories to scare you. They're warnings to stay vigilant, to trust your instincts, and to never ignore the little things that don't feel right. Because when you're alone, every sound, every shadow, every whisper can mean the difference between safety and terror. So, the next time you find yourself home alone, remember these stories. Lock your doors, check your windows, and don't open any doors, especially the ones you never knew existed. After all, sometimes it's the forgotten spaces that hide the darkest secrets. If you enjoyed this video and want more real-life horror stories that will haunt your mind, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for new videos every week. And if you're brave enough, share this with your friends. But be warned, watching alone might not be such a great idea.